Well, it is such a pivotal time in the NRL. We've got through State of Origin now, so the focus for all teams shifts to trying to make the top 8 or the top 4 if you're good enough. This video, I'm going to have a look at the NRL.com ladder predictor and see what I think the top 8 might be this year. And then we can all laugh about how stupid my picks are. Anyway, we're at round 22 this week. There's 6 rounds remaining, and that means also that 6 teams have byes still to come. That is for the Seagulls, Roosters, Broncos, Cowboys, Tigers, and Warriors. I think 3 of those teams are likely to make the top 8, and having the bye does help because that's a guaranteed 2 points. And then if you look at the Warriors, they are a mathematical chance of making the top 8, albeit unlikely. Let's see with my ladder predictor tips whether they are in fact a chance or not. But having that bye just before finals is a pretty good advantage. So before we look at the ladder predictor, let's have a quick look at the current ladder. As you look at the top 8, in my personal opinion, it's difficult to see that changing a whole lot. Certainly I feel like the top 3 is pretty solid. The Sharks are on a slight slide down, so we'll take a look at that in terms of who gets that 4th spot. But otherwise, it's a pretty sound top 8. The Raiders, Dragons, of course, are a chance. The Dragons had a pretty big loss recently, well, in the last week. And the Raiders had a good win. But yeah, look, I don't know. That's a pretty sound top 8. Dolphins were in the top 4 for most of the season. The Seagulls have a really, really good side if they can get everyone fit and firing. Cowboys have a very decent squad. So look, and the Bulldogs are in probably better form than most teams. The big questions are, can the Broncos, Warriors, for example, make a play for the top 8? They're only 2 wins out, so there is a chance. And then, as part of the predictor, it will be interesting to see who I think, based on results, will get the wooden spoon. And by all accounts, it looks like it'll come down to the last round before we know. So that, and then, you know, we can it gives you half a chance to put a bet on who's likely to take out the wooden spoon. So let's, lots to look at. Let's start. I'm going to be as fair and reasonable and not, you know, tipping with the heart, shall we say, but it's extremely difficult. I have had a couple of goes, and most of the reason why I had a couple of goes is because I'm trying to record in a different way, and I've mucked it up a couple of times. So anyway, let's have a quick look. I'll be as quick as I can, but yeah, certainly it's a fascinating exercise, and it's gonna be wrong, but let's see. Cowboys should win against the Tigers. I can't imagine the Tigers win another game this season. They're certainly looking for the forward to the future anyway. Warriors should win against the Eels at home. That should be okay. Roosters against the Dolphins. I feel like the Dolphins really want to bounce back from last week. So that game will be fascinating and interesting. It's a home game for the Dolphins. I'm going to lean towards the Roosters. They haven't had too many wins against top 8 sides, so they obviously bounced back really well last week after their loss against the Storm. Titans Broncos, I feel like the Titans will win that one. Titans certainly played a lot better than Broncos did last week, so if that's something to go by. But the Broncos should bounce back too. I guess that's the big question there. Storm should beat the Dragons at home. Sharks should beat the Rabbitohs at home. Panthers should beat the Knights. Bulldogs, Raiders, another great game. I feel like the Bulldogs after last week is pretty hard to tip against them at home. They've got Josh Addo-Carr back, and of course Stephen Crichton, who was out. So they'll be very confident after their last game. Rabbitohs versus Storm, look, we'll back the Storm there comfortably. Titans versus Sharks, I think the Titans should win that. These top 4 to 8 teams, top 4 to top 8 teams should start putting teams away now and really trying to build some momentum into finals, and that's one of those types of games because the Titans can be challenging. They're very well coached and they're playing with some really good form. Eels, I can't see them doing that against the Panthers. Raiders versus Seagulls, another one. There's probably 5 or 6 games that really stand out over the next few weeks. I feel like that's one of them that will be pivotal to who makes the top 8 out of those 2 teams, if they don't both make it. Cowboys versus Broncos at home. Based on what we saw from the Broncos last week, it's hard to tip the Broncos beating the Cowboys at home there. Dragons versus Bulldogs. Dragons at home. Yeah, look, I'm going with form there at the moment. Reason I say that, I feel like the Dragons are just sliding on form just at the moment, but that could be a game that gets them back in form again. And then you've got the Dolphins versus the Warriors. Dolphins being at home, I feel like that's just going to be a little bit too difficult for the Warriors to get up for. The Knights should put the Tigers away comfortably. I don't think I could tip the Tigers again this year. They certainly don't give you a reason to tip them, so I won't tip them, I don't think. They might cause one upset, but that would be surprising. Panthers against the Storm at home. This is basically playing for the top spot, although the Storm are a couple of wins out in front, but we'll see. This will give the Panthers a chance to get that minor premiership. They're at home. I feel like that's just enough for them to win that game. Seagulls versus the Warriors. The last time these 2 teams played, it was a draw. The Seagulls at home, I feel like will just be too strong for the Warriors there. And that's the logical tip, isn't it? Roosters versus Eels. It's hard to tip these upsets as well, isn't it? Form can change from one week to the next. Bulldogs versus Dolphins. Bulldogs at home. I'm going to lean that way. Cowboys versus Raiders. Cowboys at home, I think. Tigers, no chance. Anyway, you never know. But the Rabbitohs may have Latrell Mitchell by round 24. No, I think he's still a little bit further out than that. Dragons versus Titans. Dragons at home, I think, should have the edge there. Sharks versus Knights. I will go with the Sharks there. Round 25. We've got Tigers versus Seagulls. I'll go Seagulls all the way there. I feel like this is a good one for the Warriors to win. They'll have a pretty much a sellout crowd there. Broncos versus Eels. Yeah, Broncos will have to win that one. Raiders, Panthers. I've got to keep going with the Raiders there. I think the top... It's just hard to see anyone beat the Panthers or the Storm unless they're playing each other. Storm again. Knights, Rabbitohs. I think I'd lean towards the Rabbitohs there, but if the Knights can find some form, you never know. Titans versus Roosters. Yeah, you've got to back the Roosters all day, don't you? Dragons versus Sharks. Dragons versus Sharks. Dragons at home, maybe. I can't see them getting into better form, as I said, so I'm going to lean towards the Sharks again. Does that put them in 3rd spot in round 25? Interesting. Now, I know I haven't been selecting the margins. I am just going with 12 points. I feel like that's just fair. Most of the games will be closer than that, let's be honest. I don't know if the differential is going to have a significant impact on the end. Let's see what it looks like, but for now I'm just going to keep going, just picking results for the moment. I feel like the Storm, that will be a really tough game, that one. Storm against the Cowboys up there. I think in a different attempt at this, I had the Cowboys winning, but yeah, I don't know. It's, like I said, I just find it's really difficult to tip against the Storm and Panthers. The Storm are only getting better at the moment. That spine's finally together with Cameron Munster. I think they're going to build a bit of momentum, and they are going to really target some of these sorts of games. Bulldogs versus Seagulls, it will be reasonably pivotal, although no, it's probably not going to have a lot of bearing on the top 8, but maybe just that positioning within the top 8. Panthers, Rabbitohs, pretty easy tip at this stage. Eels, Dragons, you'd have to lean towards the Dragons, although the Eels had the potential to cause an upset. They did look pretty good for most of that first half against the Storm. So who knows? If they are on, then they will definitely challenge teams like the Dragons. Dolphins versus the Broncos, and of course the Dolphins are in 8th at that point. Dolphins versus the Broncos. At the moment, I'm going to lean towards the Dolphins there, but that's such a difficult game to tip. I mean, it is at Suncorp, so Broncos will feel pretty comfortable there, feel like a bit of a home game for them. Sharks versus Warriors, you'd have to back the Sharks there. Knights versus Titans, you'd have to back the Knights at home. Roosters versus Raiders, you'd have to back the Roosters as well. Tigers get 2 points. Well, would you look at that? Won't be because they win. Broncos versus Storm, yeah, up at Suncorp. Yeah, Storm's got a few tough games there, don't they? The Panthers are a chance to bump them off the minor premiership. But yeah, I'll just keep tipping the Storm and the Panthers for now. The Broncos is going to be one of the most fascinating teams over the next few weeks, that's for sure. I mean, they were grand finalists last year, of course. Tigers, Eels, fight for the wooden spoon. Not quite hard as the last round. I feel like, again, I'm not going to tip the Tigers. I just can't. They haven't given me a reason for a while. I don't think they'll give us a reason in the next few weeks anyway. Rabbitohs versus Roosters. Bit of a good rival match, that one. Latrell Mitchell will be back. The Rabbitohs won't be playing for a top 8 spot. The Roosters should win that one though. Dragons versus Raiders. Dragons at home. Dragons are playing for a top. They are a good chance of making the top 8 there. At this point, the Raiders are just slightly out. Dragons have more to play for, and they're at home. Bulldogs versus Cowboys. Damn good game. Some really good games, but again, you know what? I'm going to change that tip there because I think the Storm are likely to rest a lot of players. Let's just see. Panthers are likely to do the same, but I'll tip them anyway. Yeah, see, the Panthers could go ahead. Of course, my points differential, just giving every team 12-point wins at the moment, may impact on that. And then let's just see, you've got the Sea Eagles versus Sharks. I feel like the Sea Eagles at home should win that one, and that should seal their top 8 spot. Dolphins at the end there against the Knights. If we were to tip the Dolphins away, do they get into the top 8? Yeah, I like that. I feel like that's the right thing to do, of course. That differential plays a part, and I appreciate that. That's where it could get a bit fuzzy, but at the moment, the Dragons and Dolphins are quite far apart in terms of points differential. I feel like the Dolphins have done enough to make the top 8. They were in the top 4 for most of the season. Seagulls can beat anyone on their day, as I've said in previous videos. Sharks have a great roster. The Bulldogs are in awesome form and have been the biggest improvers this year. The Sharks were in the top spot for a fair chunk of the season, and I think that top 3 is pretty much locked in. It'll just depend a little bit on that first and second and who pulls off the minor premiership. Might come down to points differential as well. Anyway, that's a top 8. I don't mind that top 8. We've pretty much got that top 8 now, I think. So I'm not expecting a whole lot of changes there. There will be upsets. I will have got stuff wrong, but it looks pretty sound to me. Let me know what you think of how stupid some of the tips are that I've picked, but more importantly, can you let me know what you think the top 8 is going to look like? And then when we've finally got the top 8, we can all laugh at me and how far wrong I got, but it looks pretty sound, it looks pretty safe. The reality is that the Broncos, the Warriors, even the Titans now do have mathematical chances of making it, but it seems pretty unlikely. I feel like the Broncos have the best team to do that, but they do have some challenges there after what we saw last week in particular. If you've watched this video, thank you so much. Look out for the next one and enjoy the NRL round this weekend. Cheers.